Nobody in Millbrook thought Tuesday would be the day everything went sideways. The small Indiana town had always been the kind of place where folks worried about corn prices and high school football scores, not running for their lives from monsters that used to be their neighbors. But that's exactly what happened when Travis Murphy rolled into the Quick Stop gas station on Route 9, looking for his morning coffee and maybe a breakfast burrito if they hadn't sold out yet. Travis was your typical small-town mechanic, 32 years old with grease permanently stained under his fingernails and a Colts cap that had seen better days. He'd been up since 5 working on Mrs. Henderson's Buick, and his stomach was growling something fierce. The fluorescent lights of the Quick Stop buzzed overhead as he pushed through the door, the little bell chiming like it had every morning for the past decade. But something felt off immediately. The usual cashier, old Jimmy Patterson, wasn't behind the counter. Instead, there was just an overturned coffee pot spreading a dark puddle across the linoleum floor. "Jimmy?" Travis called out, his boots sticking slightly to the floor as he walked deeper into the store. "You back there, man?" The coolers hummed their usual tune, and the hot dog roller kept turning its sad collection of shriveled meat, but there wasn't a soul in sight. Travis felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up, that primal instinct that told him something wasn't right. He'd felt it once before, in Afghanistan during his 2 tours, right before an IED went off 3 clicks from his position. He'd learned to trust that feeling. That's when he heard it, a wet, dragging sound coming from the back storage room. Like someone pulling a heavy sack of potatoes across concrete, except wetter and accompanied by this horrible wheezing sound that made Travis's skin crawl. He grabbed a Louisville Slugger from the sports display rack, the price tag still dangling from the handle, and slowly approached the storage room door. "Jimmy, if this is some kind of joke, it ain't funny, man," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The door was already cracked open about 6 inches, and Travis used the bat to push it wider. The overhead light in the storage room was swinging slightly, casting moving shadows that made everything look worse. And there was Jimmy Patterson, or what used to be Jimmy Patterson, crouched over something Travis really didn't want to identify. Jimmy's khaki work shirt was torn and soaked with dark stains, and when he turned to look at Travis, his eyes were completely white, no iris, no pupil, just milky white orbs that seemed to glow in the dim light. "Oh hell no," Travis breathed, taking a step backward. Jimmy's mouth opened wider than any human mouth should open, and this horrible hissing sound came out, along with the smell of rotting meat and something chemical that burned Travis's nostrils. Jimmy lurched forward with surprising speed, his movements jerky and wrong, like a puppet being controlled by someone who'd never actually seen a person walk before. Travis swung the bat on pure instinct, connecting with Jimmy's shoulder and sending the thing that used to be his friend stumbling sideways into a shelf of motor oil. The bottles crashed to the floor, spilling their contents everywhere, but Jimmy didn't seem to notice or care. He just kept coming, hands outstretched, fingers bent into claws, that awful hissing getting louder. "I'm sorry, Jimmy, I'm real sorry," Travis muttered, and this time he aimed for the head. The bat connected with a sickening crack, and Jimmy went down hard, twitching once before going still. Travis stood there, breathing hard, his hands shaking so bad he almost dropped the bat. He'd seen combat, seen things that would give most people nightmares for life, but this was different. This was Jimmy Patterson, who'd given Travis free coffee on his birthday every year, who'd coached Little League and never missed Sunday service at First Baptist. Travis pulled out his cell phone with trembling hands and dialed 911, but all he got was a busy signal. He tried again. Still busy. On the 3rd try, he gave up and called his best friend Marcus Webb instead. Marcus picked up on the 2nd ring. "Yo, Travis, what's good?" "Marcus, man, you need to get to your truck and get out of town right now," Travis said, his voice coming out higher and faster than he intended. "Something's real wrong, like end of the world wrong." "Dude, are you high?" Marcus laughed. "It's 8 in the morning on a Tuesday. I'm dead serious, man. I just had to put down Jimmy Patterson because he tried to eat me or something. His eyes were all white and he was moving wrong and... You did what? Marcus's voice lost all its humor. Travis, that ain't funny. Do I sound like I'm laughing? Check the news, check anything, just get ready to move. Something bad's happening. Travis ended the call and carefully made his way back through the store, giving Jimmy's body a wide berth. He grabbed as much bottled water and non-perishable food as he could carry, threw $200 bills on the counter from his wallet, and got the hell out of there. Outside, Millbrook looked normal. Too normal. The morning sun was shining, birds were singing, and Mrs. Chin was across the street watering her petunias like it was just another day. But Travis could hear sirens in the distance, a lot of them, all coming from the direction of downtown. He loaded his supplies into his F-150 and pulled out his phone again, scrolling through social media. That's when he saw it, dozens of posts from people all over town, all saying basically the same thing. People were acting crazy, attacking others, and nothing could stop them except destroying the brain. The word zombie kept popping up, and Travis wanted to laugh at how ridiculous it sounded, except he'd just brained Jimmy Patterson with a baseball bat and the guy had definitely been trying to eat him. He started his truck and headed toward Marcus's place on the east side of town, but he only made it 3 blocks before traffic came to a complete standstill. People were abandoning their cars and running in all directions, screaming about the sick people, the crazy people, the dead people who weren't staying dead. Travis saw a woman in a business suit sprinting down the sidewalk, her heels in her hand, blood streaming from a bite wound on her arm. He saw a cop trying to restrain someone in the middle of the intersection, but the person, if you could still call it that, wasn't responding to the taser at all. Travis threw his truck in reverse, jumped the curb, and started taking back roads he'd known since he was a kid riding his bike to the fishing hole. He called Marcus again. "Where are you right now?" "I'm at home, man. I turned on the news like you said and, Travis, they're saying this is happening everywhere. Not just Millbrook, like everywhere. Chicago, Indianapolis, Louisville, all of it. They're saying it's some kind of virus or biological attack or something. They're saying to stay inside and lock your doors." "Yeah, well, staying inside didn't help Jimmy Patterson none," Travis said, swerving around an abandoned minivan. "I'm coming to get you. Pack light, weapons and supplies only. We need to get out of town, head somewhere rural, somewhere with less people." "My sister's out in Crossroads," Marcus said. "That's barely even a town, just like 200 people and a whole lot of farmland." "Perfect. Is she there now?" "Yeah, she's there with her husband and kids." "I'll call her, tell her we're coming." Travis picked up Marcus 15 minutes later, which would have been a 5-minute drive under normal circumstances. Marcus came out of his duplex carrying a hunting rifle, a backpack, and a baseball bat of his own. He was a big guy, 6'3" and built like the linebacker he'd been in high school, with dark skin and a shaved head that made him look way more intimidating than he actually was. At least, that's what Travis had always thought. Right now, intimidating seemed like a good quality to have. "Your neighbor?" Travis asked, pointing to the door of the other duplex unit, which was standing wide open with broken glass scattered across the porch. "Haven't seen Mr. Reynolds all morning," Marcus said, climbing into the truck. "And I ain't going to go check, either. Let's roll." They headed east out of Millbrook, taking County Road 47 because the highway was probably going to be a parking lot. They passed farms and fields, silos and barns, everything looking peaceful and normal until they came up on the Morrison farm and saw 3 of those things tearing into what was left of a cow in the middle of the pasture. The creatures looked up as the truck passed, their faces covered in blood, and Travis pressed the accelerator harder. "This is really happening," Marcus said quietly, almost to himself. "This is actually, really happening." "Yeah," Travis agreed. "Yeah, it is." They'd made it about 20 miles when they came across the overturned school bus. It was lying on its side across both lanes of the road, blocking the entire route. Travis slowed down, his gut telling him this was bad news. The bus was empty, but its back emergency door was hanging open, swinging slightly in the breeze. "We gotta go around," Travis said, but before he could start backing up, people emerged from the cornfield on both sides of the road. Living people this time, not those things. There were maybe a dozen of them, looking scared and desperate, waving their arms. "Please," a woman shouted. "Please, we need help. They're right behind us." Travis looked at Marcus, who looked back at him. They both knew letting people get close was a risk, but they also both knew they couldn't just drive away from folks who needed help. That wasn't how they were raised. "Stay sharp," Travis muttered, and rolled down his window about 3 inches. "How many of you are there? Who's hurt?" A middle-aged guy in a John Deere cap stepped forward. "I'm Dale Pritchard. That's my boss, I'm a driver for the county. We were evacuating kids from Riverside Elementary when we got swarmed. The kids all got out, ran into the fields. We're trying to find them, but those things are everywhere." Travis felt his stomach drop. Kids, alone in the fields with those things hunting them. How many kids? 15, maybe 20. Ages 6 to 10. They scattered in every direction when we crashed. Dale looked like he might cry. I tried to keep them together, but they were so scared, and those things were so fast. All right, Travis said, making a decision he knew he might regret. "We help find the kids, then we all get out of here together." Agreed? The group nodded frantically. Travis and Marcus got out of the truck, taking their weapons with them. The group of survivors included Dale, 2 women who'd been bus monitors, a farmer who'd been working his field when the bus crashed, and 8 others who'd apparently been seeking shelter in the area when everything went sideways. One of them was a young woman named Bailey Anderson, probably mid-20s, with blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail and sharp green eyes that took in everything. She was carrying a machete and had a no-nonsense air about her that Travis respected immediately. "I'm a park ranger," she said when she caught him looking. "Or I was, anyway. Not sure if that job still exists. I know how to track, and I know these fields. I can help find those kids." "Then you're with me and Marcus," Travis said. "Rest of you, search in pairs, stay in visual range of each other, and if you see those things, you run back here and honk the horn on my truck. 3 short blasts. That'll be the signal to get back here ASAP." They split up, moving into the cornfields that stretched out on either side of the road. The corn was high, almost ready for harvest, which meant visibility was terrible. Every rustling stalk could be a kid or could be one of those things. Travis moved carefully, Marcus on his left and Bailey on his right, all of them trying to be quiet while also calling out softly for the children. "Here," Bailey whispered, pointing to small footprints in the dirt between rows. "Kid's shoe, maybe size 2. Fresh tracks." They followed the prints deeper into the field, and Travis tried not to think about how easy it would be to get turned around in here, how they could walk in circles for hours and never find their way back. Then he heard it, a child's whimper, quickly stifled. "Hello," he called out softly. "We're here to help. We're not sick, we're not going to hurt you." A small face peered out from beneath a dense cluster of corn stalks, a little girl, maybe 7 years old, with dark curly hair and tear-stained cheeks. She looked at them with huge, terrified eyes. "Hey there," Bailey said, crouching down and making herself smaller, less threatening. "My name's Bailey. What's yours?" "Emma," the girl whispered. "Emma, that's a real pretty name. Emma, we're going to get you somewhere safe, okay? But we need you to be real brave for just a little bit longer. Can you do that?" Emma nodded and crawled out from her hiding spot. She latched onto Bailey's hand like a lifeline, and they started making their way back toward the road. They'd only gone about 10 yards when Travis heard the hissing sound he'd learned to dread. 3 of those things emerged from the corn ahead of them, moving in that horrible jerky way, their clothes torn and bloody, their eyes that awful milky white. Travis raised his bat, Marcus brought up the rifle, and Bailey positioned herself in front of Emma. "On 3, Marcus said quietly. 1, 2, 3. The rifle shot echoed across the field, and the first creature's head snapped back, the thing dropping like a puppet with its strings cut. Travis rushed the second one, swinging the bat hard enough that he felt the impact jar his shoulders. The thing went down, and he hit it twice more to make sure it stayed down. Bailey had the machete out and took down the third one with 2 quick, efficient strikes that told Travis she'd already had practice today. Emma was crying silently, her whole body shaking. Bailey picked her up, and the girl buried her face in the ranger's shoulder. They made it back to the road to find that 3 more children had been found by other groups. Dale, the bus driver, was openly crying with relief, hugging a little boy who couldn't have been more than 6. Over the next hour, they found 11 more kids, which meant they were still missing at least 4, maybe more. The group was getting antsy, wanting to get moving, saying they'd done what they could. Travis was starting to agree when they heard a kid screaming from somewhere deeper in the corn, toward the east. "That's Jacob," one of the found children shouted. "That's Jacob Murphy." Travis looked at Marcus, then at the cornfield, then back at the group. Murphy was his last name too, not that it was uncommon around here. "I'm going. Rest of you, if I'm not back in 15 minutes, you leave. Get these kids somewhere safe." "I'm coming with you," Bailey said, already handing Emma to Dale. "Me too," Marcus added. They didn't have time to argue, so they ran toward the screaming. Travis crashed through the corn, not caring about stealth anymore, just speed. They found the boy, maybe 9 years old, with red hair and freckles, backed up against an old irrigation pipe while 2 of those things advanced on him from different directions. Marcus took the shot, dropping one immediately. Travis went for the other, but his foot caught on something and he went down hard, the bat flying from his hands. The creature turned its attention to him, and he scrambled backward, his hand closing around something metal, an old piece of farm equipment, a rusted blade from a harvester. He swung it up just as the thing lunged, and the blade went right through its neck, nearly decapitating it. The creature collapsed on top of him, and Travis shoved it away with a yell of disgust, scrambling to his feet. Bailey had reached the boy and was checking him over. "You bit? Scratched? Any injuries at all?" "No, ma'am," Jacob said, his voice shaking. "I'm okay, I think I'm okay." They got back to the road to find the group had loaded all the kids into the back of Travis's truck in a van someone had managed to get running. "We gotta move," Dale said. "Like right now. There's more of them coming from the west, I saw at least 20. Crossroads," Travis said. "It's about 40 miles east on back roads. Small town, defensible, got farmland for supplies. Everyone follow my truck." The convoy consisted of Travis's F-150, the van, an old sedan, and a pickup truck that had belonged to the farmer. They moved as fast as they dared on the county roads, seeing more and more signs of the collapse as they went. Abandoned cars, houses with doors standing open, a church with all its windows broken out, and scattered throughout it all, those things, shambling and hunting, sometimes alone, sometimes in groups. They had to backtrack twice when they found roads blocked, and once they had to plow straight through a group of 5 creatures that had been feeding on something in the middle of the road. Travis tried not to look at what it had been, just focused on keeping the truck moving. It was late afternoon by the time they reached Crossroads, and what they found wasn't encouraging. The tiny town looked like it had been hit hard. Main Street was littered with abandoned vehicles and broken glass. But Marcus's sister lived on the far side of town, on a property that had been in her husband's family for generations, a farmhouse with a barn, a couple of outbuildings, and most importantly, a good fence around the main yard. They pulled up to find the gate closed and someone standing guard with a shotgun. The guard turned out to be Marcus's brother-in-law, a guy named Connor Walsh, who nearly cried when he saw Marcus was alive. "Thank God," Connor said, pulling Marcus into a quick hug before opening the gate. Get in quick. There's probably 30 of those things in town, and they're drawn to noise." They got all the vehicles inside the fence, and Travis finally got a good look at what they were working with. The farmhouse was solid, 2 stories, with a wraparound porch and shutters that actually worked. The barn was huge and mostly empty since the Walshes had sold off their livestock the previous year. There were maybe 30 people already taking shelter here, including Marcus's sister Janelle and her 2 kids. Janelle Walsh was a schoolteacher, normally cheerful and optimistic, but today she looked exhausted and scared. She immediately set to work helping Bailey settle the traumatized children they'd rescued, finding them food and blankets and trying to create some sense of normalcy in the chaos. Travis found himself in the kitchen with Marcus, Connor, and a few others, trying to figure out what the hell they were going to do. The news on the radio, when they could get a signal, was beyond bad. The outbreak had started on the East Coast, they said, some kind of biological weapon or virus or maybe both. It spread fast, faster than anyone could have imagined, and the government response had been too slow, too disorganized. There was talk of military checkpoints and safe zones, but nobody seemed to know where those actually were. "We can't stay here forever," Connor said, looking around the table. "We got maybe a week's worth of food for 30+ people, and that's if we ration hard. The well's good, so water's not a problem, but food, medicine, fuel, we're going to need supplies." "The town," Travis said. "Has anyone checked the stores in town?" "We drove through quick when we got here yesterday," Connor replied. "Looked like the pharmacy and the grocery store both got hit pretty hard, but there might be stuff left. Problem is, like I said, those things are all over town." "Then we go in smart," Bailey said from the doorway. Travis hadn't heard her come in. "Fast team, in and out, dawn or dusk when visibility's lower but we can still see to navigate. Hit the most important locations, pharmacy, grocery, hardware store if there is one. There's a feed store on Main," Connor offered. "They sell more than just animal feed. Some dry goods, tools, stuff like that." "I'll go," Travis said immediately. "Me too," Marcus added. "Count me in," Bailey said. They ended up with a team of 6, Travis, Marcus, Bailey, Connor, a former Marine named Jason Torres who'd been sheltering at the farm, and a woman named Deanna Price who'd worked as an EMT and knew what medical supplies to prioritize. They'd leave at dawn, take 2 vehicles for maximum cargo capacity, and be back before noon. Travis tried to sleep that night, lying on a cot in the barn with the sounds of other people breathing, crying, praying all around him. He kept seeing Jimmy Patterson's white eyes, kept feeling the impact of the bat connecting with skull. 24 hours ago, his biggest worry had been whether he'd get Mrs. Henderson's Buick running in time for her bridge game. Now he was planning a supply run through a town full of monsters, hoping to keep a group of strangers alive through what might actually be the end of the world. When dawn came, it was cold and gray, with a mist hanging over the fields that made everything look dreamlike and unreal. The team gathered at the gate, checking weapons, and going over the plan one more time. They'd take Connor's pickup in the van, hit the pharmacy first, then the grocery store, then the feed store if they had time. Any signs of a herd, any indication things were going south, they'd abort and get back. The drive into Crossroads was nerve-wracking. The mist made it hard to see more than 20 feet ahead, and every shadow could be one of those things. They parked in the alley behind the pharmacy, and Jason and Marcus stayed with the vehicles while the other 4 went inside. The back door had already been broken open, which wasn't encouraging. Inside, the pharmacy was a mess, shelves knocked over, pills scattered across the floor, a dark stain that might have been blood spreading out from behind the counter. But Deanna knew her stuff, moving quickly through what was left, grabbing antibiotics, pain meds, insulin, anything that might keep someone alive. Travis stood guard, bat ready, while Bailey and Connor filled bags with medical supplies. They were almost done when Travis heard that sound, the wet, dragging footstep, the wheezing breath. He turned to see one of those things coming around the corner of the aisle, and this one was fresh, couldn't have been turned more than a day or two. It was wearing a pharmacist's coat, and Travis wondered if this had been the person who worked here, if they'd been trying to help people when they got bit. He didn't have time to philosophize about it though, because the thing lunged at him with surprising speed. Travis swung the bat, caught it in the chest, knocked it back but didn't put it down. The creature came again, and this time Travis aimed for the head, putting all his weight behind the swing. The thing dropped, and Travis stood over it, breathing hard, his hands shaking again like they had at the quick stop. "We're good," Deanna called out. "We got what we need. Let's move." They loaded the supplies into the van and moved on to the grocery store. This one had definitely been looted, but there was still plenty left if you knew where to look. They loaded up on canned goods, rice, beans, flour, anything non-perishable. Bailey found the camping section and grabbed water purification tablets, batteries, flashlights, and emergency blankets. They were loading the last of it into the trucks when they heard the sound that would haunt Travis's nightmares for the rest of his life, a kind of collective moan, dozens of voices all making the same horrible sound at once. The mist was lifting as the sun got higher, and they could see them now, stumbling down Main Street from the east, 30 or 40 of those things, drawn by the noise they'd been making loading supplies. "Go, go, go!" Connor shouted, and they all piled into the vehicles. Jason started the pickup, but the van's engine turned over once, twice, and didn't catch. Travis, who was in the driver's seat, tried again, pumping the gas, praying to anyone who might be listening. The herd was getting closer, close enough that Travis could see the individual details he didn't want to see, the torn clothes, the wounds, the blood. The engine turned over again, coughed, and finally roared to life. Travis threw it in reverse and floored it, shooting backward out of the alley and into the street, Connor's pickup right behind him. They raced out of town with the herd shambling after them, nowhere near fast enough to catch vehicles but scary as hell nonetheless. They made it back to the farm, got through the gate, and everyone stood there for a moment, just breathing, processing the fact that they'd made it. "We got enough food here for maybe 3 weeks if we're careful," Deanna said, taking inventory of what they'd gathered. "Medical supplies for basic stuff, but anything serious and we're gonna have problems. The good news is I grabbed a whole box of vitamins and some prenatal supplements." "Why prenatal?" Travis asked. Deanna gave him a look. "Because Janelle Walsh ain't the only pregnant woman in this group, and if we're gonna survive long-term, we need to think about that." Travis hadn't even considered it, but she was right. There were kids here, pregnant women, elderly folks who needed medication, people with chronic conditions. This wasn't just about surviving the next week or the next month. This might be about rebuilding, about figuring out how to live in a world where those things were now a permanent part of the landscape. Over the next few days, they settled into a routine. Guards on the fence line at all times, work details for farming and fortification, inventory management for supplies, and education for the kids because Janelle insisted they needed to maintain some sense of normalcy. Travis found himself becoming one of the leaders by default, along with Connor, Bailey, and a former teacher named Raymond Mitchell who was good at organizing people and resources. They cleared out one of the outbuildings and turned it into a workshop where they could make weapons and tools. They reinforced the fence, adding height and barbed wire they found in the barn. They dug a new latrine pit far from the well and set up a shower system using rainwater collection. It wasn't comfortable, but it was survival. On the 8th day, a new group arrived at the gate, 12 people in 3 vehicles, including 4 of the children they'd been missing from the school bus. Dale Pritchard, who'd been staying at the farm, nearly collapsed with relief when he saw them. The newcomers told stories of other settlements forming, other groups of survivors trying to band together. There was talk of a larger community being organized about 60 miles south, near Louisville, with military protection and real infrastructure. "We should send someone to check it out," Raymond suggested during their evening meeting. "See if it's real, see if they'd take us in or if we want to stay independent." "I'll go," Travis volunteered. He'd been feeling restless anyway, cooped up behind the fence while the world fell apart outside it. Not alone, Marcus said. We go together. Bailey nodded. 3-person team. Me, Travis, Marcus. We go, we scout, we come back and report. Leave at dawn, should be able to get there and back in 2 days if the roads are clear. They left the next morning with light packs, weapons, and one of the trucks. The journey south was a revelation in how fast society could collapse. They passed through towns that were completely abandoned, others where they could see survivors watching from barricaded buildings. They saw military vehicles abandoned on the highway, they saw signs for evacuation centers that had clearly been overrun, and they saw those things, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, wandering aimlessly or gathering in hordes around anything that made noise. The community near Louisville turned out to be real, a massive compound built around an old shopping mall, with walls made from shipping containers and school buses, guard towers, and organized patrols. They had electricity from generators, a working radio system, and honest-to-God hot meals. A woman named Colonel Patricia Brennan ran the place with military efficiency, and she welcomed new survivors, especially those with skills. We're trying to rebuild, she told them during a tour of the facility. Not just survive, but actually rebuild civilization. We have doctors, engineers, farmers, teachers. We have over 2,000 people here and the infrastructure to support maybe 1,000 more. You're welcome to join us, or if you want to stay independent, we can trade, supplies for labor, that kind of thing. It was tempting, so tempting. Hot showers, real food, safety in numbers. But Travis thought about the farm, about the community they'd built there, about the kids who'd started smiling again and the garden they'd just planted. He looked at Marcus and Bailey, and he could see they were thinking the same thing. We appreciate the offer, Travis said. But I think we're gonna head back to our people. Maybe we can set up a trading relationship though. We got farmland, we can grow food. You got medicine, ammunition, things we need. Colonel Brennan smiled. I think we can work something out. They headed back to Crossroads the next day with a truck full of supplies, a goodwill gesture from the Louisville community, and the promise of regular trading runs. When they pulled up to the farm, Connor and Janelle were waiting at the gate, and the relief on their faces told Travis he'd made the right choice. That night, Travis sat on the porch of the farmhouse with a cup of coffee, real coffee, from the Louisville supplies, and watched the sun set over the fields. Bailey came out and sat down next to him, not saying anything at first, just being present. You think we're gonna make it? She finally asked. Travis considered the question. A month ago, he'd been a small-town mechanic with simple problems and a predictable life. Now he was part of a community fighting for survival against literal monsters, trying to build something lasting in a world that had fallen apart. Yeah, he said finally. Yeah, I think we are. We got good people, we got a plan, and we got each other. That's more than a lot of folks have right now. Bailey nodded, sipping her own coffee. For what it's worth, I'm glad I ended up here. With you guys, I mean. Could have been a lot worse. Travis laughed. Could have been a lot better too. Yeah, but where's the fun in that? Over the following weeks, their little community continued to grow and adapt. They successfully harvested the vegetables from their garden, established regular trading runs with the Louisville settlement, and even started taking in other survivors who made it out to Crossroads. Travis taught mechanics classes, showing people how to keep their vehicles and generators running. Bailey led hunting and tracking expeditions, bringing in fresh meat to supplement their supplies. Marcus became the head of security, training people in defense and weapons handling. They lost people too. Old Mr. Henderson had a heart attack they couldn't treat without proper medical equipment. A scavenging team got caught by a herd and only 2 of the 4 made it back. A little girl named Sophie got sick with something they couldn't identify, and despite Deanna's best efforts, she didn't make it. They buried her in the field beyond the barn, next to the others they'd lost, and Janelle held a service even though half the people there weren't sure they believed in God anymore. But they kept going, because that's what you did. You kept going, you adapted, you survived. Travis learned that survival wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest or the best armed. It was about community, about people pulling together and taking care of each other even when everything was falling apart. 3 months after that Tuesday morning when he'd walked into the quick stop looking for coffee, Travis stood on the guard tower they'd built overlooking the gate and watched the sun rise over a world that had changed forever. The old world was gone, that was clear now. The government had collapsed, the military was fragmented, and those things, they were calling them Zeds now, short for zombie even though nobody really liked that word, were everywhere, a permanent part of the landscape they'd have to navigate. But here, in this little pocket of farmland in Indiana, they'd built something worth protecting. They'd built a home, a family, a future. Kids were learning to read and write in Janelle's schoolhouse. Couples were getting married in small ceremonies on the front lawn. They were planning for next year's planting season, talking about expanding the walls, maybe reaching out to other survivor communities and building a network. Marcus climbed up to join him, carrying 2 cups of the chicory coffee they'd been making since the real stuff ran out. "Penny for your thoughts?" Travis accepted the cup and shrugged. "Just thinking about how weird life is. Month ago, I was worried about fixing carburetors and catching the game on Sunday. Now I'm standing guard against the walking dead and helping build a new civilization. Yeah, man. It's crazy how fast things can change." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then added, "You ever think about going back? To town, I mean. To see what's left?" "Sometimes," Travis admitted. "But what's the point? That world's gone. This is what we got now. You think we'll ever figure out what caused it? The Zeds, I mean." Travis shrugged. "Maybe. Probably not. Does it matter? I guess not." They stood there in comfortable silence, watching as the community below them started to wake up. Smoke rose from chimneys, people emerged from the farmhouse and the barn, the guard shift changed at the fence line. It wasn't the life either of them would have chosen, but it was their life now, and they were making the most of it. Bailey joined them on the tower a few minutes later, binoculars in hand. "Got movement on the East Road. Looks like a vehicle, maybe 2. Could be traders from Louisville, or could be new folks looking for shelter." "Let's hope they're friendly," Marcus said. Travis nodded, already mentally preparing for whatever came next. That was the thing about this new world, you could never really relax, never really let your guard down. But you could build something worth fighting for, something worth protecting. You could find people worth surviving with. As the vehicles got closer and they could see they were indeed traders from Louisville, Travis allowed himself a small smile. They were going to make it. Day by day, crisis by crisis, they were going to survive this thing and maybe, just maybe, build something better on the other side. He thought about ordinary people facing unusual creatures and stepping into the most unexpected survival journey of their lives, and he realized that's exactly what they'd done. They weren't soldiers or superheroes or chosen ones. They were a mechanic, a park ranger, a football player turned warehouse worker, a teacher, a farmer, and a couple dozen other regular folks who'd been thrust into extraordinary circumstances. And they'd risen to the challenge. They'd adapted, they'd fought, they'd survived, and most importantly, they'd done it together. Whatever came next, whether it was more Zeds, harsh winters, resource shortages, or conflicts with other survivor groups, they'd face it the same way they'd faced everything else. One day at a time, one challenge at a time, one victory at a time. That was the new normal, and Travis Murphy, small-town mechanic turned survivor and community leader, was ready for it.